A Nascent Kaleidoscope. Chapter 181. Still a strange feeling, Kyrie noted walking out of the portal I created. Really? I took a glance around to make sure we were unseen. I guess I'm just used to it at this point. A portal wasn't as simple as tearing a hole open in space and walking through. There was a reason I required some heavy calculations before I had Mirage created. So, it isn't strange that someone feels the effects the first few times. Nothing disorientating, but there is certainly a sense of strangeness when utilizing the instantaneous movement. There was the manipulation of both the X and Y axis to achieve this result, so one's body is pulled along these lines then forced to reaffirm itself on the world line correctly at a different location. Anyways, you got a plan? I asked him. He was a freelancer and had more experience doing this sort of thing. Go check with the local police, see what they've found so far. He replied, taking out his sunglasses and putting them on. At the very least, having the locations of all the killings will help us find some sort of pattern. I nodded. I'd rather get this dealt with quickly, so it didn't drag on for when the sun went down. It was left unsaid that a bit of hypnosis would be involved. While such things are usually distasteful to use on mundane people without a good reason, but this would certainly qualify as an exception. Frankly, I prefer methods like bribing opposed to altering someone's mental state, albeit only temporary. God, this is going to be so boring. Mordred scowled, arms up behind her head as she walked next to us. Reika was also walking next to me, astralized. She did not like spending time with other people, and I didn't want to force her. There's always a chance a fight will break out. I shrugged. Yeah, but it's an assassin. She whined. They're just going to rely on tricks or run away. The little pout she gave was adorable in its own way. It was nice she had regained her usual demeanor, if with a little bit of a pep in her step. She looked happy after learning Artoria was waiting at the end of this war. Not always, I replied. In Artoria's war, the assassin was actually Sasaki Kojiro, a swordsman. Well, a bit more complicated than that, but I figured I'd let Artoria tell this story when they meet. I had only told Mordred about some of the adventures we had together as to not overstep. Really? Mordred perked up. He's strong. Artoria admitted he was superior to her in swordsmanship. I nodded. Fought him myself. He's very skilled. Even learned a thing or two from him. What? Mordred blurted out. How'd he manage that? Father was the best. She got a little quiet. Besides that damn adulterer. She added quietly, well, you'll just have to meet him. He's still around and always welcoming a good fight. I laughed. Speaking of learning, Kyrie spoke up. You said you learned from Scathach, the immortal witch. Mordred spoke her thoughts aloud. Her legends are pretty badass. Yeah, I went to the Land of Shadows to learn from her. I briefly explained. I was lucky that a route was still available with my magic. It wasn't that much of a secret. I already announced it regardless, and I was in no way ashamed of it. Though I'm curious, who's asking? I raised an eyebrow. Kyrie didn't look perturbed at my accusation. You think you can throw around that kind of power last night and not have people ask questions? I think most other folks are going to be eyeing your primordial runes. A magecraft from the age of gods that shouldn't exist anymore. It's not like they can be just learned at. I shrugged. Even Scathach had to pass them down to me in a special way. Any that are discovered nowadays are just superficial at best without the prerequisite teachings. But on a side note, I glanced at him. How much money did you make? He smirked. More than I should have. Nice. I grinned. I didn't really care if he sold public information like that. Besides, it's not like this world would be one I came back to, or if I did it would be very sporadic and without any major purpose. Huh, so this is the country's capital? Mordred looked at the city coming into view as we walked down a long road. My portal took us a little bit outside the city limits in the countryside to avoid any eyes. Is this how every city in this era looks? More or less, I replied. I guess it's nice enough. She stared at it intently. Can't compare to Camelot. As if. Mordred scoffed. But Altis the normal towns don't spell like piss and shit. Mordred gagged. The only good thing the flowery bastard ever did was sort out the plumbing for Camelot, so people didn't shit in the streets. You! I blurted out. You're telling me. It was fucking horrible going from our pristine city to a random village somewhere, and it smelled so fucking bad. The stables in Camelot smelled better than most other cities. Never been brought up in conversation with Artoria before. It was an amusing thought. Ha! Mordred let out a snort. That's because the flowery bastard used his magecraft to filter it, and Father made sure to keep him nearby. I could honestly see her doing that. Well, let's go get started. I'd like to get this done sooner rather than later. This is more than I expected. I eyed a bulletin board with a map of the city and several locations marked up. Kyrie walked over to where I was. He had just got finished talking to the Romanian police, spouting some bullshit about being some special investigators or something. I didn't really care to pay much attention. A slight shift in cognitive function, and they were led to believe are obviously fake identities. There are 8 cases so far. Kyrie lit up a cigarette and took a quick drag. The police haven't been able to find a pattern. Probably because the servant can astralize to go unnoticed and cover obscene distances in little time. I rubbed my chin. Hell, for all we know, if this really is Jack the Ripper, he could have an ability that makes him faceless since his identity was never revealed. Not to mention, he most likely has the highest level of presence concealment considering how popular his story is and evading capture. Kyrie grunted in agreement. I checked for any prostitute death stays and weeks leading up to this killing spree. Nothing on that front. To facilitate the summoning, smart. I nodded. Creating the conditions to better summon a specific servant, presenting the corpses of some prostitutes would probably increase the likelihood of summoning the killer with the right catalyst. The best conditions would have been to summon him in London. I tapped my chin. If this servant belonged to the Red faction, then chances are good that's what occurred, but that priest called that woman assassin, so I'm not so sure. Any news on similar things happening over there? Haven't heard anything, but 1 or 2 instances wouldn't raise any flags. Kyrie shook his head. It's more likely it was the Ig Millennia family, since they became hostile to the Mages Association. That was the more obvious conclusion, but I wanted to check regardless. There's no way the clock tower would allow that family to perform the ritual in the middle of their territory like that. The obvious answer would be to check out the slums, but I looked over the map. There aren't any killing in the area. They mostly happen in the upper-scale neighborhoods, which kind of goes against the supposed killer's usual MO. The master is a magus. Kyrie snorted. You think he'd allow himself to live in the slums? That's a good point. I conceded. But you're focusing on the master's preferences and not the servant's. You think the master would concede this to his servant? Kyrie didn't sound too convinced. In my experience, most magi are too arrogant to allow something like that. Again, I couldn't argue his point. I'll agree that this is a valid train of thought, but we're talking about a possible deranged killer. I pointed out, it's possible he's not as deranged as I would assume, and someone of noble origins with a disgusting hobby, but my gut is telling me to check out the slums. Well, slums isn't probably the right word. The poorer neighborhoods where you can find women soliciting themselves on the corners. How about we split up? You check where you want. I'll go down south and follow my instincts. I offered, glancing towards Mordred. I'm sure your berserker can handle an assassin. Worst comes to worse. Make a big signal, and I come running over. Oi! Mordred called out, perking up at my words. Fuck you! She flipped me off as she lazed on a nearby sofa. I just smiled innocently and waved at her. Sounds good. Kyra looked like he thought it over. It'll get this job done quicker anyways. Don't want this hanging over my head for the entire war. I couldn't fault his sentiment, and while it was still daytime, some leeway could be granted if we're dealing with a rogue servant causing issues in public. Reiku, I called out as she appeared next to me. Fancy another stroll? I offered my arm, much to her happiness. I don't think she cared we were going to look for a serial killer. She just enjoyed the time we spent together, and I honestly felt happy as well. A random thought? I'm pretty sure people were assuming that Reiku was a prostitute as she draped herself on my arm. She didn't seem to care at all the stares when we walked down the street, but I definitely recognized some of those glares. Master, Reiku spoke up, drawing my attention. I feel something stirring in the air, a familiar feeling. I paused. Can you find it? She began tugging on me, leading us in another direction. As we got closer, The amount of people on the streets grew fewer and fewer, like they were all unconsciously keeping away. "What is that?" I spoke aloud as we approached an alleyway. "Resentment," Reiku replied. "I wasn't sure until we got close. It's very concentrated amounts of resentment. In Kyoto, this would be a spot where yokai or ghosts would come into existence, if not dealt with. I do not know what will happen if left alone in this era and this land. At the very least, it may evolve into a corrosive miasma that will begin to spread." I walked in further, and I felt it more abrasively. Something or someone definitely died here, and I had a feeling our rogue servant was to blame. This amount of resentment could only be facilitated by something not common to this age. Well, it's possible that something capable of this was still up and about, but the chances were minuscule, especially in a land like Romania, where there simply was not many supernatural entities remaining, let alone ones with the needed abilities. If it were Japan, I could entertain the thought of some half-phantasmal still up and about doing stuff they shouldn't, but not here. I'm a fairly decent on my OG, I can deal with it. I took a few talismans out of my ring to create a purifying pentagram. "I did see you use talismans. I am surprised such an art persisted and is known this far from home." Reika looked on curiously. I was not proficient in the arts myself, but I knew many who could make use of the esoteric abilities. It was often easier to have things purified than to simply fight them. Not exactly my forte here, but this wasn't supported by any powerful entity, merely an exertion of unnatural phenomena. Besides, what I did to that Hydra back in Kyoto was much more complicated than this. With a flick of my wrists, my talismans shot out to the corners of the alleyway and began to glow in a faint light, washing away this feeling. Reiku perked up, turning her head to the side. "Master, a servant approaches." She got herself ready for battle before shifting slightly with a look of disdain on her face. "My apologies, it's just an insect. Allow me to go squash it." Reika was about to head over, but I stopped her. I raised an eyebrow as I saw who came over from around the corner. She even paused to look at me in surprise. "Wilhelm," a certain saintess called out. Well, 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 if it isn't the penniless saintess." I greeted with a smile. That little eye twitch appeared immediately. "Do you need to address me like that?" She sighed. "Yes," I said without hesitation, giving her another look. She was wearing the clothes I bought her before, more conservative with some jeans and a long jacket. "Is something the matter?" She caught my gaze. "Just a bit sad." I shook my head. She nodded. "Yes, this feeling does weigh on my heart." She looked around. "Ah, no." I clarified. "I meant I was sad I couldn't watch you walk around in booty shorts anymore." What?" Jean blurted out in embarrassment, her face turning bright red. "Huh. Did her clairvoyance or revelations lead her here? Or was the counter force guiding her to take care of this threat that could cause issues? Anyways," I changed the subject. "Want to help me catch a serial killer?" Chapter 182. A serial killer? Jean tilted her head in confusion. "You don't know?" I asked. She shook her head. "I felt a pull to come here and I followed." She explained briefly. "I was merely investigating the unpleasant feeling in the vicinity when I noticed the presence of a servant." So much for Big G giving guidance to a saint. I said dryly, "Well, it led me to you." She gave a strained laugh, that little tick ever present. "I can only have faith the Lord hasn't led me astray." Haha, well, you know, broken clocks and all that. I did my best to give an innocent smile. "I'm surprised you just didn't read the newspaper to figure out what's going on." The corners of my lips curled up. Her eye twitched again. "I've been too busy making sure the war isn't revealed due to large magical effects that happen over the night sky." "Huh, I guess you would be able to usher the Grail's effects to certain areas to mitigate damage as a ruler." I rubbed my chin. The Grail does put effort in ensuring secrecy, and ruler's job is to enforce rules. She made a noise of annoyance, puffing up rather cutely. "Someone is making my job extremely difficult. Wonder who that could be." I smiled innocently. "Yes, I wonder." She twitched again. "This was fun. I wish I could do this all day." "I'm curious, why didn't you assume I had a hand in what was going on here? You clearly know something is wrong, the obvious ickiness in the alley, and I'm here trying to get rid of the evidence." Her strained expression quickly shifted into a genuine smile. "The thought never crossed my mind. I think you're a good person. I blinked at the frankness of her response. A saint is calling me a good person. My ancestors are rolling in their graves. I shook my head. It could just be a ruse, a mask I put on in public. I trust my judgment. She just continued to smile. Even when you had the opportunity to kill other masters, you refrained yourself and focused on their servants. When you were at the castle of the Black Faction, you could have turned that eyesore on them in that moment, possibly removing the Black Faction from the war, yet you chose not to. So you were watching. I chuckled, before pausing. Wait, what do you mean, eyesore? That was the most impressive piece of thaumaturgy I've ever created. It was built upon several different schools of magecraft. Eyesore? What are you talking about? She clearly feigned ignorance. This is the best saintess. Penniless Saint has jokes. I pursed my lips. How about writing them down for me, so I can enjoy them later, She twitched again. Master. Reika grabbed our attention. Ignore the insect. We came here for a reason. Right. I nodded. Unfortunately, I think she'll probably be our best bet on finding this person. I rubbed my chin. Her ability to seek out the danger, or whatever the mechanics are, it's possibly more precise than our attempts at searching this place. Reika scowled. Should we blindfold her and have her point in a random direction? I blinked, looking towards Jean then back at Reiku. And no. Jean quickly tried to dismiss the idea. My lips curled up again as I stared at the saintess. Reiku, you're brilliant. It doesn't work like that. Jean squeaked out. I shall restrain her, master. Reika suddenly seemed happier, perhaps a little too happy. Foo. She giggled. Come here, little saintess. Meep! Jean looked afraid, and I didn't blame her. This is unnecessary. Jean whined. I ignored her complaints. You know, Reiku. I turned towards my servant. We just needed her blindfolded, not this. I gestured towards Jean, who was tied up. A bit lewdly, if I were honest. Master, you're the one who gave me the rope. She seemed proud of herself. That I did. I just nodded. Well done, Reiku. I praised. Master. Reiku enveloped me, pushing my head between her breasts again. I can hear you. Jean wiggled in her bindings. Unfortunately, I can hear you as well. Reika did not hold back her disdain. Master, we should use our compass before we lose daylight. Alrighty, Jean. I walked up, putting my hands on her shoulders. I'm just going to spin. Wah, it doesn't work like that. Jean continued. And I'm not a compass. Around a bit, and the direction you decided to stop in, is where we're going to go. Stop, she managed to squeak out as I began spinning her. Big G, work your miracles. Don't call him that. She whined, coming to a halt. I am dizzy. She bobbed her head back and forth. Perfect. I nodded, looking down the street where she stopped at. I began to undo her bindings, and she just puffed up, giving an adorable pout. It doesn't work like this. She reiterated. To have so little faith, TSK tisk. I shook my head. Why you? She did a little stomp on the ground. Fine. She pouted. I intended to search this area of the city anyways. Reika still looked very pleased with herself. Stay here if you wish. You are not needed. She casually replied, taking my arm and practically dragged me away. Master, let's go find Assassin, so we can spend the rest of the day together. Wait for me. Jean quickly caught up with a huff. You used me like that and just planned to leave me behind. She said indignantly. You didn't even tell me who we're looking for. Jack the Ripper. I stated. Jean's cute demeanor shifted to something serious. The serial killer from London. She repeated, almost mechanically. I see, this may be troublesome. Yup. Their legend's taken on so many forms over the years, they could have a wide array of abilities that correspond to being a good killer. It would really be an annoying opponent, but it would be best to remove them from play now. Interestingly enough, they haven't targeted any innocents yet. You said there had been mentions in the newspaper. She looked at me in confusion. I went to the police station to get a better look at everything that's happened. I began to explain. So far, the victims were a handful of child traffickers, a serial rapist, a wife beater, and a gang leader. There are more, but you get the idea. They were all killed in the same style as Jack the Ripper, even if his victim pool had extended beyond prostitutes. Perhaps his master had a better reign on him than I anticipated. I see, she said quietly. Even so, we can't allow them to run around and kill like this. I agree. I nodded. While I had no complaints about the victims, it's not like this could keep going on. It had already grabbed the attention of the Mages Association. This wasn't my world, but I'm here and should clean up the messes around me out of courtesy. Master. Reika stopped, eyes darting around. I sensed something familiar ahead. I turned towards Jean, raising an eyebrow. It could be anything, she said sheepishly. It's similar to the resentment from before. Reika did not hold back. And this place is noticeably empty, I muttered. In fact, I had a feeling in the back of my head telling me to just go away. Strange indeed. Almost as if on K, a strange fog began rolling in, and we all brought our guards up. The sun was completely blocked in a matter of moments, the fog enveloping every corner of the street. Master, Reika turned to me out of concern. I noticed, don't worry. I reassured her, my aura flaring. This fog, or whatever it was poisonous. I could feel it slowly eating away at my aura reserves. A glowing pair of eyes was seen not that far in front of us. Go away, a voice called out amongst the fog. I again turned to Jean. She glanced at me, then turned away, refusing to meet my gaze. Assassin servant. Jean quickly donned her servant armaments, flag standard in her hand. You will cease this attack at once. I am ruler, and I'm here to investigate the killings going on. The assassin's servant didn't answer, but disappeared into the surrounding fog. Did you expect that to work? Shush! She puffed up again. The fog around us sort of vibrated, its presence amplified to a degree that I could through my aura. I issued a warning, Jean stated, grabbing her flag with both hands, her entire body filled with a brilliant light. I unconsciously took a few steps away, recognizing the threat this light posed to me. She looked at me strangely. As I reeled back from it, but didn't pay it any more mind. Ha! She slammed her flag down, the light shooting off in every direction. I put up a shield along with my aura to mitigate the corrosive power from touching me. The fog dispersed, and a figure came into view. We said to go away. The servant held a dagger in her hand. Yes, her. But more importantly, it was a child. One that was wearing something very revealing for someone who appeared to be younger than my daughter, but a child nonetheless. Even Jean was caught off guard by the servant, as we were all expecting an old man or some sort. Whoa! I held my hands up. Let's not fight. The assassin paused, staring at me. Leave us alone, we're not going to let you hurt Mommy. She disappeared, the fog around her sort of enveloping her form. A moment later, she was stabbing towards me in particular. I guess she noticed I was a master in this situation. Well, assassins specialize in removing masters since their stats are usually lower than the other classes. Reika swung her sword, deflecting a dagger that was aiming for my back. It wasn't beyond my means to block myself, but Reika was my servant, and she would prefer to handle this on her own if possible. Disgusting thing. Reika surprisingly showed no fondness for the child servant. How many ghosts are you possessed by? I blinked at her words, staring at the assassin again, who skirted away after the first clash. I see. That's why this resentment was so strong. Are you even a servant or an amalgamation of specters? Reika spat out. We will not allow Mommy to be hurt. She didn't waver, holding her dagger up. I let out a sigh, putting my hand on Reika's shoulder. Let's not fight. Reika shot me a look, but didn't dismiss my words. The assassin didn't budge, still ready to attack. It didn't look like she was trying to win, but scare us off. I suppose she didn't feel confident in being able to take us all on, especially since Jean dispersed that fog so easily. I can guess she relied on it for her stealthier maneuvers. My name is Wilhelm Henry Schweinorg. I took a step forward, introducing myself. Can you tell me your name? We are assassin. She said simply. I think she was a bit confused at what I was doing. Can I ask that you don't attack me? I promise I don't intend to hurt you, or your Mommy did. Lies! She frowned. You look like all the ones who hurt Mommy before. No idea what was going on here, but something didn't feel right. We're not allowed to fight during the day, you know that, right? I tried a different approach. She gripped her dagger tightly, but didn't respond. Look, even Ruler is here. If we try to fight, she'll stop us. I glanced up at Jean, giving her a wink. Why, yes, that is correct. Fighting during the day is prohibited. I will not allow it to happen regardless of who it is. Jean confirmed. You're not going to hurt us or Mommy. The assassin looked up at Jean. I promise, I will not move on either of you unless a rule is being broken. Jean said with utmost sincerity. You're warm. Assassin brought her dagger down. The light was nice and warm. She repeated as if it was important. The pauses and the blank stare that happened were almost a dead giveaway in having a mental conversation with someone. We will trust you, but we still need to have a talk about the people you've been killing. Jean would not relent on this matter. Was it the Saintess's natural disposition that seemed to suit this childlike servant? We had to, she said quietly. I took another step forward, having an idea of what was going on. She raised her dagger up, ready to attack, but I held my hands out as if to tell her I wasn't going to harm her. There's something wrong with your Mommy and her giving you magical energy, isn't there? The little flash across her face made me think I hit the mark. So she wasn't just killing indiscriminately, but siphoning magical energy for her continued existence. I took a few more steps forward, moving down to a knee to get eye level with her. How about a peace offering? I took out a dust crystal, holding it out for her to take. Hey, if we could avoid fighting, then by all means. I didn't particularly want to move against a child, even if it was a servant. She looked at it, then at me, then at Jean. She looked really hesitant but took a step forward and snatched it out of my hand. By the look on her face, I could tell she knew what had just been given to her. With that, you shouldn't have to drain anyone for a while, right? I offered a smile. What do you want? She said bluntly, even if it was a little cute in her childish voice. Can we go speak to your master? I asked. This whole situation was completely not what I expected. At this point, I wanted to get a gauge on her master to figure out how to proceed. Again, the assassin looked at me, then back at Jean, even sparing Reiku a glance. You won't hurt Mommy. I promise I won't do anything but defend myself, ruler as witness. I gestured towards her. And I will not allow fighting during the day. She nodded. Another blank stare, and it looked like Assassin was talking to their master. I guess she had great confidence in her ability to escape if she was being so open around us. But that's Assassin servants for you. Okay, we'll take you to Mommy. Assassin seemingly relented, turning around an usher for us to follow. Chapter 183. Master, why will you not let me cleanse this child? Reika's voice came over the links we shared. Surely you can feel this disgusting feeling as well. I can, I said simply as my eyes were drawn to the back of the assassin servant. I wasn't like Reiku, where I was so honed to the feeling of resentment that I could sense it from long distances, but even here, I could practically taste the uncountable number of hate-filled emotions hidden deep inside this child. Does this child seem strange to you? Strange. Beyond being a conglomeration of ghosts the likes I've never seen before. For such a creature, a wraith, she seems oddly rational. I briefly thought about Sasaki Kojiro, but his situation was much different. Frankly, she should be nothing but a mess of hate and death, yet she appeared and tried to scare us off. It was obvious she did not think she could win. Then why did she decide to attack instead of running away? I countered. An assassin servant is one who waits for the most opportune moments to strike considering their lower physical abilities. At least for the most part. Once again, Sasaki Kojiro was an outlier in this regard. Reika looked a little surprised by my retort, her brow furrowed in through. In her view, it could have been an opportunity to remove a master. She simply could have had confidence in her ability to escape under those circumstances. We tracked her down easily enough. Why wouldn't we be able to again if she failed? I replied, shaking my head. In my opinion, she just cared for the safety of someone else more than herself. You heard her words, and maybe you should give them the due consideration. Her mother. Reika's mental voice went a bit quiet, and I'm pretty sure I poked a sore spot by pointing it out. While she didn't care about other people much due to her madness, certain things could still strike a chord with her if they weren't blatantly involving other people in front of her. A story or a situation would perhaps have a great impact if it was more ambiguous than actually seeing it. I put a hand on her shoulder, giving her a smile. Besides, if the worst comes to happen, you're here to protect me, right? Reiku perked up, and that bright smile reappeared on her face, of course. Mommy will protect you no matter what. The further the servant led us, the more the creepy feeling emerged from the surroundings. If I didn't know any better, I'd suspect she was doing it on purpose. But frankly, her existence seems to be spilling out onto the surroundings. The one from before, the alley we initially found and purified, I could guess that she killed someone there, which was why it stood out even though she'd only been there for a brief moment. I thought there weren't any murders in this part of the city, but I guess the police didn't investigate too far into this area or it had never been discovered. I didn't find the traces of a corpse anywhere either, only the lingering miasma. Eventually, we came upon an apartment complex that was surprisingly clean as opposed to most of the street, like she intentionally reeled herself in while here. If you hurt Mommy, we won't forgive you. The assassin shot us another look before pushing the door open. The killing intent in her voice made me raise an eyebrow. I promise we will not harm your master as long as we are not attacked. Jean spoke up again, reiterating her position. You have my word as the ruler of this war. Jack gave her a long stare, and it was hard to guess her thoughts. She merely made a small noise in acknowledgement. Jackie, is that you? We pushed open an apartment door behind the assassin's servant, walking inside to meet a woman sitting down at a table. Didn't look surprised to see us, most likely having been in mental contact with her servant the entire time. She was quite beautiful, a sensual charm that could probably entrap many. Mommy, we're back. The assassin's servant happily skipped into their master's arms. I see that. Her master smiled lightly at her servant's antics. You did good. She rubbed the assassin's head, before looking up at us. Her expression was one of forced calmness. I've dealt with people enough to know when they're nervous. You weren't the one who summoned her, were you? I hazarded a guess, taking the initiative in this conversation. Her overall demeanor, her handling of the situation, it spoke of inexperience. She allowed us to walk right into her home, and it was obviously without any defenses. No magus would allow such a thing. She reacted slightly, which told me all I needed to know. If I had to guess, you were completely unaware of this hidden world before whatever happened to land you as her master. I continued on, and she didn't stop me. She frowned, and there was a little bit of resentment flashing across her face. Someone else thought I would be a good material to summon her. She scoffed, a noticeable amount of anger and disgust in her voice. Well, I can see she doesn't have the best impression of magic users at this point then. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I replied with sincerity. She crossed her arms. You wanted to see me, what do you want? I'm sure your servant has told you about the war, yes? I glanced at Jean, and I guess she was staying quiet because I was operating as a master towards another master. She would probably have words when we settled our own thing outside her purview. She told me enough. You drew a lot of attention to yourself with these killings. I began to explain. The Mages Association that policies our hidden world, they know something's going on and sent people to investigate. Is this where you offer me a deal? She scowled. That look is the same as all my clients who look down on me. Are you going to tell me to get on my knees too, like that bastard who tried to kill me? You're making an awful lot of assumptions here. Huh? She blurted out an annoyed laugh. I know your type, magic or not. You see me as beneath you and still come here wanting something. She eyed me up and down. Silver spoon in your mouth, never having to want for anything, and I'm just a damn prostitute. She might not be the sanest at the moment. Well, her whole world had probably been turned upside down, and she's just lashing out for the moment. I usually would be a bit understanding, but I was a little annoyed by her accusations. My mother was a prostitute, and I hold no shame towards that. I said dryly, breaking her from that little triad she was going on. I would ask that you stop making assumptions about my life. It's understandable that you're on edge, having entered this world recently. But if you continue as you are, you're going to get yourself killed. Don't threaten Mommy. The assassin practically exploded with killing intent directed on me. I turned to her and let my magical energy leak out to match her, not backing down from her gaze. I am not scared of you, assassin. Even without my own servant here, I would be confident in dealing with you. I made sure to make my stance known. I'm here as a courtesy, and if I had wanted to bring harm to your master, she would not be alive right now. Jackie, her master put a hand on her servant. Let's hear him out. Okay, Mommy. The assassin smiled brightly, like that little incident didn't happen. I let out a sigh. At least we're just talking. If you had killed innocents, we wouldn't be having a discussion. I made sure to reveal just how much rope they were about to hang themselves with. You people care about innocents? The master asked with skepticism. Your information probably came entirely from your servant and your experience with the one who tried to summon her. No doubt it's flawed and full of holes. I rubbed my eyes. It's a good assumption to make that all magi are people you don't want to cross and will do unspeakable things in the name of their research. I began explaining. But not all of them are like that, but err on the side of caution. Now, I went back on topic. The way I see it, you have 3 realistic options available to you on how you want to proceed with this war. 3 options. She repeated. I nodded. First, you simply fight by yourself, you and your servant against 11 others. One having been killed so far. The second, I continued, is you ally with someone. But at the end of the day, you're still going to have to fight until one servant remains for the wish. Third, I punctuated one last time. I can offer you a way out of this war. Wilhelm. Ruler turned to me. I hope you aren't going to break any rules. She narrowed her eyes. Yup. I smiled right at her. Don't tell me so blatantly. Ruler huffed. If you try, I'll have to stop you. Well, she couldn't do anything until I actually broke them. You can try, penniless saintess. I laughed, turning back to Assassin's Master. You can ignore me and I'll leave. But then you have to deal with Ruler, and she won't let you go around killing people anymore to support your servant. Assassin's Master looked at me again, uncertainty clear on her face. Do I have to fight? She asked. No. I shook my head. Sitting here, doing nothing is also an option. But the others will come eventually. The war won't end unless there is one servant remaining for the wish. I sighed, seeing the contemplative look she had. What are you even trying to do here? Do you want a wish? I just want to live with Jackie, she said quietly. I never cared before, always going through life with detachment. For the first time, when that Magus tried to kill me, I thought, I want to live and Jackie here save me. Mommy! The assassin reached for her master with a hug. The master smiled, hugging her back. If we fought, do you think we could win? Not a chance. I was blunt. She started to laugh, rubbing Assassin's head. Then what will you do with me, if I take my out? I'll win the Grail, and can bring you 2 away, so you won't have to deal with any of this again. If you want a quiet life somewhere, I can arrange that. If you want to start over completely, I can do that as well. It didn't seem like she had any attachments here, so bringing them to another world, away from all of this, might be in their best interest. I thought you said only one servant can remain. Are you going to kill my Jackie? She looked at me darkly. That's for other people. I smiled. My grandfather helped create the Grail. I know a few things around such limitations. I can only ask that you trust me not to harm you in the end. I shrugged. There wasn't much else I could do. Trust. She laughed. It's basically blackmail. That's true. I nodded. But at least it's not malicious. I can put more faith in you wanting less competition than actually wanting to help someone like me. She let out a long sigh. What do we have to lose? I never did ask your name. I stated. Reika Rikudu, she said bluntly. So you are Japanese as well. I muttered. Wilhelm Henry Schweinorg. I introduced myself. My family name has some weight in the Magus community. If you run into any issues in the immediate time frame, feel free to use it. I took out a few dust crystal from my ring and set them on the table. A peace offering and something to set you at ease for now. What are these? She reached over without hesitation and picked one up. I twitched involuntarily before I remembered she wasn't a Magus and lacked the same survival instincts to the unknown. Crystallized magical energy. Your servant should be able to run on them for a while, so please don't go killing, otherwise other people won't sit still regardless of my input. I replied. She set it down, probably not completely understanding except that it would be good for her assassin. Why? She finally asked. Why what? Why are you being so helpful? I'm nobody. She looked down. You said you don't care about Jackie, so why are you even going through the effort when no one else ever has? You didn't ask for this. It really wasn't fair to her. Is it hard to believe I can sympathize with you? Maybe more that I should. I knew I was drawing parallels to my own upbringing, but I couldn't help it. I turned to Ruler. Do you have anything to add? She shook her head. If it happens again, I will return, but I am content for now. Reiku, I asked through our link. I have nothing to say, Master. I do not believe it is wise to let this thing remain, but I am conflicted. As a mother, I wish this woman to have the same happiness that I do. Well, she was rationalizing it somehow. As long as she doesn't react violently, I'll leave it alone for now. I'll come around when everything is settled, I said towards Reika. The assassin walked over, tugging on my sleeve. She looked up, smiling cutely. If you lied to Mommy, we'll cut you open and pull out your insides. Well, okay then. Chapter 184. Well, that was easier than I thought it would be, I said idly as we left the little domain that assassin created around her master's home. I was not expecting a child, Jean said honestly. Should I have done something? She asked, though I don't know if it was directed at me. At the end of the day, is the world worse off after what happened? I replied, I'm not one for killing people for the hell of it, but some people I don't care if they die and others I think shouldn't continue living. I've seen so much death in my existence, between both lives, that I'm very desensitized to it all. If something happens in front of me, I would do something obviously, but something happening out of my vicinity that has no bearing on me? I don't know if I could bring myself to action. I'm no hero. We're still people, Jean said quietly. And that's why you're revered as a saintess. I lightly patted her head. She made a little noise in embarrassment. Assassin, though, should I have offered to purify their resentment? It wouldn't be technically against the rules, but it also isn't something I should meddle in. I am of the same mind. Reiku actually spoke up. I do not believe that creature should have been made to exist in that continued state. Well, that was rare for Reiku to even acknowledge her, for her to agree with Jean. Maybe I've made the wrong decision? I would be lying if I said I didn't feel pity for both of them. Maybe I was projecting some of my own feelings onto the situation. Entirely possible. She isn't out of control. I closed my eyes briefly, letting out a sigh. And she's apparently capable of making rational decisions. I don't believe I'm in the position to judge what she is when she's no threat under normal circumstances. You're right. Jean smiled brightly. The Lord shelters all of his children, regardless of their origin. She nodded happily. If it cheered her up. And I wonder if she would still repeat that if she knew what I was. Would she despise me? But Wilhelm. She turned towards me. I didn't push it because I did not wish to interfere with your talks, but I will stop you if you try to break the rules. The tone of her voice told me how serious she was. Technically. New, huh? She cut me off. There's no in between, Wilhelm. I will stop you if I have to. She paused, as if realization dawned on her. You said before that you hoped we wouldn't become enemies. I let out a sigh. You're going to be unmoving on this, aren't you? I take my duties seriously. She looked at me pointedly. I guess it'll be inevitable then. I frowned. Jean pursed her lips. I'm the ruler of this war, and you're telling me you're going to break the rules. She sighed. What am I going to do with you? Well, you can't act unless I actually do something. I grinned, poking her. She puffed up indignantly. I'll just have to keep an extra eye on you then. You can watch all you want. I wiggled my eyebrows. Stop it, she squeaked out. I was being serious. She was fun to tease. Do what you need to do, Jean. I pat her shoulder. Regardless, I'll win in the end. I smiled. We'll see. She pursed her lips again, looking like she didn't believe me. Got any other things you have to do today, or are you just wandering around? I decided to change the subject. Truthfully, I would really not like to fight her. I'd grown fond of this penniless saintess. I've had a feeling pulling me somewhere, but it doesn't feel as urgent as this situation. She replied, So immediate threat versus something that may happen in time. I hazarded a guess. That was my thought. She nodded her head. This nagging feeling keeps pointing me in the direction of the Red Faction. By Red Faction, you mean the flying fortress that fell from the sky? Yes, the massive fortress that lit up in the middle of the night when someone almost revealed magic to a large part of the country. Her eye twitched. What dashing magus could have done such a thing? I feigned ignorance. Whoever he is, He must be extremely handsome and powerful. She looked at me before letting out a laugh, a genuine one that brought a smile to my face. Seemingly, the tenseness of the previous conversation faded away. Are you always so boastful? Boastful? I looked aghast. I merely speak the truth. I turned to my quiet servant. Right, Reiku? Of course, master. She smiled happily. See? I turned back towards the saintess. A clearly objective opinion, I'm sure. She said dryly. I chuckled at her response. So, nagging feeling telling you to check out the Red faction, is that because they stole the Grail? They attacked Jean, violating the rules, then stole the Grail for a specific reason. It wasn't hard to put 2 and 2 together here. They're obviously up to something, and can somehow manipulate the Grail if they're going through the trouble. Hell, Medea pulled some shenanigans with the Grail back home, and she had a lot less resources than these people seem to have. It intensified briefly, but I've had this feeling since I've manifested now. She shook her head in response. I just have not had the opportunity to seek them out since, well, being attacked as soon as you got here. I finished for her. Yes, that. Yeah, probably not a good idea to walk into the territory of people willing to break the rules and try to kill you. I couldn't fault her hesitance. Even with the command seal she possesses, things could happen. Her authority was not absolute, and neither were the commands she could issue. Well, we'll be heading there come night. You're welcome to come along. You know I cannot offer aid. She looked at me. That's fine. You make a good shield, even if you just stand there. I gave her a thumbs up. I'm not a shield. Saint Shield, my strongest noble phantasm. No, she whined. You're not allowed to do that again. She puffed up. You know, I need to find the others, and I have no idea where they went. I grinned, looking right at her. No. She squeaked out again. Reiku, prepare the rope. Fu-fu-fu. Yo. I raised my hand up, greeting Mordred and Kyrie as they came towards us. You find the assassin? Kyrie pulled a chair at our table as we relaxed in the evening sun. His eyes landed on Ruler, but he focused on the more pressing issue apparently. Found, dealt with. I nodded. Kill him then? Was he strong? Mordred also slid into a chair, propping her chin up. We just wandered around for like 2 hours finding nothing. She seemed a little annoyed. Not really. I began to explain. Turns out it was a child and a master who had no idea about our world in general. She had some extenuating circumstances. Wait, the master is a child? Mordred looked surprised. No. The servant, Jack the Ripper, was apparently a little girl or something. What do you mean, or something that? Kyrie wanted clarification. Basically, how do I put this? She was a conglomeration of ghosts, forming a wraith that fit into the vessel that is Jack the Ripper. At least as far as I could tell. Since his identity was never known, she's probably not the only Jack the Ripper that could be summoned. It wasn't very hard to put the pieces together when I had a few moments to think about it. And they're dead. Nope. I shook my head. Left them alone since they didn't want to fight. I gave them a means to keep their assassin anchored without having to kill people, so they shouldn't be a problem again. I offered them an out at the end of the war if they didn't cause any issues, and they took it. Geez. Kyrie rubbed his temples. What am I supposed to tell my employers? Tell them I can go have a talk with them personally if they're upset. Kyrie snorted, but I think he took that to heart. Whatever. At the very least, one less assassin that will try to stab us in the back. I offered as a consolation. Yeah, I hate dealing with those types, so it's fine with me. Besides, I don't want to have to kill a kid and a master who didn't even know what she was doing in the first place. Mordred didn't seem to care. All right, now that that's settled, introductions. I clapped my hands. This is Ruler, I gestured towards Jean. She's joining our team. I'm not, she said curtly. Ruler, this is Mordred, my son. I gestured towards the Knight of Rebellion. I'm not. Mordred gave an almost identical response. Good, now that's settled. Yeah, no. Mordred interjected. I should clarify I am not aiding you in the upcoming battle. Jean replied. Aren't rulers supposed to be neutral? Mordred asked. We are. She nodded. I am merely spending my time idly. She explained. Or, until Wilhelm decides to start breaking the rules. She added on with a rather dry tone. Oh shit, does that mean I can fight her? Mordred turned to me, a little excited. I want a real fight. That berserker didn't really match up. She paused, giving Ruler a once-over. Hang on. Why does she kind of look like father? Pardon? Jean seemed confused. Yeah, now that I look at her, she does kind of look like Artoria. I rubbed my chin. Curious. Hey, are they related? Are we related? Mordred asked me. Unlikely. I shook my head. How so? I mean, she doesn't look that far off. She's French. Ah, got it. Mordred nodded as if that was a good enough explanation. What's that supposed to mean? Jean huffed. I snorted, holding back my laughter, even earning a small little chuckle from Mordred. Taking the piss out of the French, it was an English pastime. I may not be English myself, either now or in my past life, but I've lived there long enough to pick up certain things. Taking a moment to settle down, I looked towards Kyrie. Do you have any thoughts about tonight? Kyrie, who had a small smile on his face watching us, took off his sunglasses and rubbed his eyes. I'll be coming with, he stated. I can't stay out of it forever, especially with what remains of that fortress. No idea if they'll be able to mess with our connection with that thing. That's a fair point. That flying fortress could have possibly interfered with the master-servant link depending on its ability if they went inside. Hell yeah! Mordred pumped her fist. Well, she's certainly excited. Any plans on how you want to go about it? He took a pack of cigarettes out of his pocket, lighting one up and taking a smoke. Is there any point now? Again, that's fair. I nodded. By now, my capabilities are known, as are our servants in some regard. It's either going to be a scramble to get the Grail, or an all-out fight to finish everything. Either way, this war will end tonight. Simplest method is usually the best. Kyrie nodded. We were just unlucky they got the Grail before us last night. Yeah, I didn't think the Red faction would be after the Grail as well like that. Oh well, nothing I could do at this point. The best course of action would just be a direct attack. I can't say I'm not a little bit excited. I was sure I had a wide grin on my face. Non-canon make. Get out of my universe. Doctor Who. I had the vague recollection that I wasn't supposed to come to this reality, but I couldn't quite remember why. I looked around, and it was just a normal Earth, with normal people walking around. No one even gave me a second glance as I stood to the side. Strange. Turning to the side, I noticed something that seemed to mess with my perception. It was easily enough to dismiss the passive filter it seemed to house around it, to see what lay beneath. Is that a police box? Do they even have those anymore? Almost immediately the door to it opened and someone jumped out, turning and staring right at me. No, he declared, pointing right at me. No, no, no. Get out of my universe. He stomped over to me, and I recalled why I didn't come here anymore in my past life. Well, hey there, Big Chin. Big Chin. He huffed. My chin isn't big. It kinda is. A woman flanked him, a redhead. I think she's Scottish. Hey! He sounded indignant. My chin is perfectly normal. It's not. I denied. Well, no one asked you. He turned his nose up. Wait, stop distracting me. Get out of my universe. Your universe. I scoffed. I don't see your name on it. Oh, how mature. He rolled his eyes. What? The guy dressed like he's going to go on Sesame Street is talking about maturity. You're like one of those hipsters that intentionally tries to dress like the quintessential dork. Shows what you know. He pulled on his bow tie. Bow ties are cool. No, they aren't, old man. I crossed my arms. They really aren't. The girl beside him agreed. I turned towards her. Hello there. I gave a charming. Sup? She gave a smile. No, none of that. He stepped between us. Get out of my universe. You agreed to our deal. Shoo, shoo, he gestured for me to leave. I'm not Zelretch. I deadpanned. I'm his grandson. Oh, my mistake. He fixed his bow tie. Nice to meet you. Now, get out of my universe. Doctor, who is he? She asked. Someone who doesn't belong here. Bitch, I'm more human than you are. How about you get off my planet? Hey, language. He chided. I'm sorry. I forgot how much of a child you are. I retorted, ignoring him. I turned to his companion. Nice to meet you. Wilhelm Henry Schweinorg at your service. I introduced. Amelia Pond. She gave a smile. So who are you? Just your average, dimensionally traveling magician. I grinned. Like magic? She laughed. Yes. It was the doctor who answered. Wait, are you serious? She snapped her head towards him. Unfortunately, he scowled. I thought magic was fake, like sufficiently advanced technology, or however that saying goes. She looked surprised. That's true, for this universe. He perked up. My people banished magic from the universe at the dawn of creation. He sounded rather pleased with himself. But that doesn't mean it can't come from other places. He narrowed his eyes. True magician over here. I waved towards her. If you're interested, I wouldn't mind answering some questions over, say, dinner? No. The doctor interjected. Stop that. What? Flirting? My lips curled up. I'm sorry, is it such a foreign concept to you? Am I offending your delicate sensibilities? As if. I'll have you know I'm married. He looked rather proud. I don't believe you. I said immediately. Hi, you're just jealous. He straightened his bow tie again. Boys, are you really doing this? Amelia tried to interject. I have a harem. I countered. And that's an immediate no to the dinner. She added. Yeah, well, I've kissed the Queen of England. He gave a smug smile. That's leave me with a lot of questions. She spoke to herself. But keep ignoring me. I'll just sit here in my own little world. I fucked King Arthur. I declared. What do I need to give you? He finally said. Pardon. I grinned at him. What? He punctuated. Do I need to give you, to get you to leave for good? I couldn't help but widen my grin. And that's how I got my hands on a sonic screwdriver. I held up the little device as it made a buzzing sound. Wilhelm. Zelretch clasped his hands on my shoulders. I have never been so proud of you as I am right now. Chapter 185. Interlude 8. Kister Zelretch Schweinard POV. Visuals appeared all around me, magical screens that scried certain locations based on my calculations. Andrew Furlong. I looked at the man who appeared on the screen. Mundane by every measurable means, a product of his environment, as he somehow developed ties with some local terrorists that could be traced to the IRA. A man filled with hate and wanted to lash out. I shook my head, devising the means for the bomb he was carrying to detonate early while he was home alone. If left to his own devices, he would have killed a child that would go on to become a prominent legislative figure, reversing many environmental deficits. With a swipe of my hand, I switched screens without watching the effects of the bomb exploding. At another location, a young teen held a dog in their arms. The dog had cancer, a variant that gave the canine about an 80% chance to live after certain surgeries. They were hopeful, so perhaps the chances were a smidge higher in their favor. By all accounts, it should live. In another time and place, a few months down the line, the same, but distraught, young teen would enter a competition on a whim. The opportunity to add an object to a capsule that would be launched into space with records and messages to any who found it in the future. He would choose his dog's name tag. After being invited to witness the launch, he would be inspired, and at that moment promise himself to also walk among the stars to be with his best friend again. His career as an astronaut would be short-lived, a single mission that took him beyond the planet. But it would inspire a new generation as he took up teaching, going from school to tell of his experiences. An uncountable number of young minds would be set on certain paths from his intervention. With a heavy heart, I reached out for the dog, and with a slight twitch of my fingers, watched as the light left from its soldering surgery. I slumped back in my seat, swiping the screens to a new one once again. A woman walking down the street, a flip of my hand and she tripped, getting hit by a bicycle, causing her to become paralyzed from the waist down. Across the world, an older gentleman momentarily got distracted with a snap of my fingers. The car he was working on now had a small flaw that would become disastrous for a certain someone who would buy in about 10 years down the line. Children running around without supervision, and a speeding car coming down the street. A boat that sunk at sea, and a single survivor cast adrift. It was all too easy to divert his rescue to another direction. I let out a sigh, closing my eyes briefly. So much death and suffering. How often do I question if these little actions of mine will make a difference? I just continue to do what I can to make sure the world kept on spinning. The more that pushes humanity forward, the higher the chance that the counterforce will continue to support this iteration of reality. Even so, all my actions are like tiny grains of sand that I'm trying to build into a desert. I took a moment to reorientate myself before opening my eyes once again, and I couldn't help but smile as I looked upon the latest scenario before me. It had become increasingly uncommon that I could actually save people to the betterment of humanity's continued existence. It just seems that there are many people who should not grow old or continue to exist in the world. Let's see. I need this gentleman to be about 4 seconds late for his meeting. Quickly untying his shoe should do the trick. He won't get hit by a truck and die. Thus his grandson will go on to discover an alloy that will be quite useful to the world in the future and increases our chances against the spider by 0.003% if my calculations are correct. The scales skew just ever so slightly more in our favor. A welcome surprise. Perhaps I should take a break. I muttered to myself. It was rare I had a small win like this without any negative side effects. How is my wonderful grandson doing? I hummed to myself, picking out the world line he had gone to. As much as he inherited from me due to his circumstances, he still lacks quite a bit. It was entirely unlikely he would even know I took a glance his way. Foo-foo-foo, Mommy is going to spoil you. I blinked, then quickly shut off the viewing. I let out another sigh as I ran a hand down my face. Damn it, Wilhelm, I muttered, yet my smile wouldn't fade away. Oh, to be young again. Back when I had more freedom, I do miss some of my past paramours. I wonder if he even remembers them with his fragmented memories. Ah! I blinked again in realization. I wondered if Wilhelm would be willing to run an errand for me. I have that old letter I wanted to give, but I could never find the opportunity to leave after getting wrapped up in my own business. Lucretia! I let the name flow out of my mouth, bringing with it somber memories. Just one of many regrets, many of which are no longer alive. Maybe that's why I enjoyed my grandson bringing home so many granddaughters. They certainly do liven the place up, and by the looks of it, he'll be adding another to their number. I'm glad Wilhelm wasn't like me and is not shy about taking in the ones who make him happy. It took me too many centuries to realize how lonely it had been to reach this point. To look back and see no one standing behind me. I was close to breaking the method that I used to send my memories through a reincarnation cycle. How amusing that I was trying to reverse engineer my own work. It was an enjoyable experience, if nothing else. Every method, so far, had ended in failure when I've done my experiments, but it's obvious I succeed at some point in the future, even if they're fragmented as they were when Wilhelm received them. Let's check on Rin. I muttered again, finding the world line she was in. The world of Nirn, and this land of Skyrim, as they called it. I've only peered over there a few times, but since she was in possession of Ruby, I could lock onto that easily enough to just peek at her general direction. Why are you backing away? I got it this time. Rin's voice was displayed along with her dirted face and matted hair. Her clothes looked scuffled as well. Rin, you exploded yourself twice now. Artoria replied with a dry tone. I didn't explode myself. She countered. Rin, there are literally scorch marks underneath you. Ignore those. She huffed. Please don't tell Will. He'll never let me live this down. I promise I will not tell Wilhelm of your continued exploding. Artoria stated. Or Jin. Rin demanded. Or Jin. Saber said as well. Good. Rin smiled. You said nothing of Meridia, though. Artoria quirked a small smile. No. Saber. My young apprentice whined. I had a content smile as I watched their antics. How far they've come from the 2 young women who entered the clock tower those years ago. They were so guarded and pulled into themselves that I fear they would never truly open up again. Without Shiro Amiya existing in this world line, I had to move a few things more overtly to make sure Saber was summoned by Rin. I admit, there were high odds that things would not have gone a good way and I might have had to step in, but they seemed to have turned out all right in the end. A calculated risk that turned in my favor. And since my usual plan of having Rin recreate my jeweled sword wasn't plausible in this scenario, I decided to just take her as an apprentice early on. Yes, I think I made the correct choice. She did well to prove herself through other means. Teaming up with Castor and her master, finding the Grail to be corrupted like it was, and even defeating the King of Heroes who persisted from the last war. They had done wonderfully, and the time that passed since then did them good They slowly got acclimatized to the day-to-day of the association, and I couldn't help but see them as my own granddaughters after a point. Then, of course, my apparent grandson comes along and sweeps Miss Artoria off her feet with his honeyed words and charming smile. I wonder if he realizes who he got it from. I had many a female companion in my day, more so than he even has now. Poor Artoria, did she ever stand a chance? With a flick of my wrist, the images of my apprentice disappeared. I did not wish to become a voyeur, merely checking in on her every now and then. This old heart of mine couldn't help but fuss over their safety. I readjusted myself in my seat, returning to my previous duties. More nameless faces appeared before me as I once again took on the role of the hand behind the curtains. I slowly did my best to guide the fate of humanity away from destruction, to ensure that the world would continue to exist in the future. And I continued to add those grains of sand.